I am an accountant for a petrochemical firm stuck in a city under siege in the Middle East. My name is Jason Falkland, and this is Siege Radio.
Garrickston. Well, I'll give it this much. It is a beautiful country. The dawn is visible from my veranda. There's a cool wind blowing over the lily pond in the park next door. It's these quiet moments that make me want to get up early each morning. It's the one time of day you're not going to hear a cold mechanic gunfire in the distance. There's a war outside my window. I can see it now as I speak to you, and I'm sure you can hear it too. There's only so much I can do to keep this microphone clean and this radio system working. I've been in Garrickston a little over a month now, but the firing didn't actually begin until sometime last week. That's when the siege on Garrickston officially began. Things have been heading for the worst since then. It all started when the first elected president of Garrickston refused to bend the knee for the Rebels Alliance of Syria, better known as the RAS. A self-proclaimed army of the gods, who have since then done everything from beheading an American nurse from Doctors Without Borders to burning children alive. All of which streamed live. It hurts to think that those live streams have hit millions of views. Really makes you wonder about the human mind. Are we animals? Or are we worse than animals? I mean, I've never heard of animals killing based on skin color, origin, or even faith. But what would I know? The concept of killing for faith is something I just don't understand. I mean, I was raised by atheist parents. The idea of faith was something I didn't even know about for a long time. So, maybe it'd be best if I don't poke or prod at that at all. I mean, I just don't know much about it. The city of Garrickston is under siege from all sides. I can actually see the front lines from my window. The airport is just outside the city and has several RAS checkpoints. And of course, the airport was taken over by the RAS, and now I'm stuck. I'm getting worried. The RAS are pretty much against any Western influence in their great country. Of course, it doesn't help that I'm American and an accountant for a petrochemical firm.
I don't know if anybody can actually hear this. I'm hoping somebody is. Assuming that anyone can hear this at all, there's a few things I should have mentioned earlier. Why don't we talk about the room I'm currently in? Now, this was the hotel room I booked when I arrived here. Hotel Ivory Lagoon is the name. I'm an accountant, as I said earlier, and was actually supposed to check out of this place 4 days ago to get a flight back to Wall Street, New York. I know I'd get shot if anybody from the RAS knew anything at all about what I do for a living. I've already gone to the nearest food shop about the time the firing began, and bought as much as I could, and then bunkered down here inside my hotel room. Now, of course, the hotel management has pretty well abandoned this place, so I decided to just get as much as I could, bunker down in here. Seemed like the right thing to do. Being the cynic I am, I guess that's what happens when you're calculating risk, estimating the worst case scenario in your life. I first decided to look into the hotel's inventory and found out that it had a nice supply of 20-liter water bottles. I moved quickly and was able to move all 5 of these to my room. The hotel was, of course, empty, and so I'm really the only one who's going to need it. Thought about moving to a more populous area, but I was hit with a thought. The heavy movement areas, they're going to be under a constant watch, but nobody is going to think to search some abandoned hotel near the border. I also found this old beat-up radio, the one I'm broadcasting through. It wasn't working at first, but I did manage to fix it after spending little time with it. Thankfully, it was just a broken fuse. By no means the best piece of equipment in the world, but I am hoping my voice will at least reach the nearby democratic countries. I'm going to try to keep this transmission clean, but the only experience with a radio machine I've ever had is running some illegal radio back in college. As of right now, I have enough food for a solid month and water for the next few months. Now I can ration the food and make it last as long as the water. That shouldn't be too hard. Plus, the tap water is clean. Actually, in fact, I think I should just save this bottled water just for emergencies. Of course, I don't want to risk transmitting every moment of the day. Okay, well, what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna record events as they take place, and then transmit it during the firing when it's least likely going to be noticed by the RAS, and a bit more likely to be caught by the media, which is trying to get as much info from within and outside Garrickston. Back in college, accounting college that is, I took geopolitics to be one of my minor subjects. It's surprisingly useful in the business world. Knowing more about where the business is happening always leads to better risk estimation and threat removal. And I was also certain that I was going to go into big oil, and my professor suggested I take up geopolitics, so I did. I'm gonna try and explain just how it got so bad here. Now, it isn't really complicated, but it is sad. Very sad. If history is to be believed, these areas were some of the wealthiest on Earth back in the day. Now look at it. It's consumed in the flame of extremism and war. I'm going to try and keep these segments just small, to the point, bite-sized. Let's start with just the history of Garrickston. Now, Garrickston was an important city to the Ottoman Empire. It became a part of the empire just before Suleiman I took the throne, and for over 3 centuries, these lands were filled with wealth. I mean, these guys took over Constantinople, the then capital of Christendom. Their maths and chemistry was beyond anything the West could fathom. These guys were, for all intents and purposes, and by the old standards, the First World Empire. If you're unfamiliar with the Ottomans, their empire, at its height, controlled all the ports and port cities south of Europe, and it also controlled some of Europe itself. Actually, there was an old saying, and I find it interesting in the context of today. It goes something like this. There are no borders the Ottomans can't move. Incredibly shocking is the fact that later, the Ottoman Empire became known as the sick man of Europe. The original sick man of Europe. It died a slow, painful death. The death blow was in World War I when, after losing the war to the Allies, the Empire was cut up and divided to the Allied victors. The areas of Gerikston were handed over to the French. This was the end of peace and stability here. These countries and these people would never again know the conform and wealth that the Empire had. Isn't it interesting how much everything changes? An empire that took as long to take down as it took to go up. I wonder, will this happen to our empire? The American Empire? Surely, we're not immune to the historical wheel of empires. Today, I was visited by the Resistance of Gerikston. Now, the Resistance is basically made up of anyone willing to fight the RAS. Anyone at all. They are able to join. They were moving through the hotel, checking for materials, anything really, to aid in their war against the RAS. They took 4 out of the 5 bottles of water I had, and then most of the food. Now I've just got over a week's worth of food at best. They also wanted to take the radio. Now I couldn't have that. What's happening here? It needs to be heard. I gave them 6 $20 bills, and then that was the end of that. Now I gotta get creative for food. Oh, and they made pretty clear that they'll be sweeping my room every other day. But there is a bit of good news in all this. While they were here, the Resistance told me about the apparent arrival of the UN peacekeepers. Supposedly, they're set to arrive within the month. They'll have truckloads of food, dozens of doctors, and a regiment of the UN peacekeepers' army. And suddenly, I'm hopeful again. I am Jason Falkland, and this is Siege Radio.
Siege Radio is a production of Harsh Gupta and Lance Talbert for Siege Radio Productions. We are an independent two-man team that produce storytelling podcasts which were made free forever. Want to help the show? Head on over to patreon.com/Siege Radio. That is patreon.com/SIEGERADIO. Thanks.